Do you ever see a successful woman on your feed or in a magazine and think, wow, it must be nice to have it so easy? Well, think again. Behind that glossy cover or smiling face is a ton of hard work, countless failures, and endless learning experiences. I'm Rebecca Minkoff, and I'm here to tell you that success isn't a walk in the park. It takes grit, resilience, and a willingness to take risks. That's why I created Superwomen, a podcast that peels back the varnish and gets into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to make it as a woman in today's world. From luminaries and game changers to women you've never heard of but should, this podcast is here to inspire you to take your next leap, no matter how daunting it may seem. We'll explore the sacrifices these women have made, the highs and lows they've experienced, and the lessons they've learned along the way. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn from some of the most successful women out there, join me on Superwomen. Together, we'll uncover the stories behind the successes and prove that with hard work, determination, and a little bit of luck, anything is possible. Hey everyone, you're listening to Superwomen. Today's guest is the largest woman-owned Latina haircare brand, Carolyn Aronson, the CEO and founder of It's a 10 Haircare. She has a legitimate empire with over billions of dollars in evaluation and over $500 million in sales. She worked her way up at the age of 18 from a salon chair after beauty scale to now owning one of the biggest and baddest haircare empires in the world. We talk about what it was like for her to leave the foster system at age 2, getting adopted, and taking her drive and turning it into her power. About how her father truly helped her understand the world of business at a very early age, and how those tools have led to her success today. She's known for so many products, with the star product being Miracle Leave-In, which was one bottle that she still sells to this day. Take a listen. Carolyn, welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to speak to you today about how you built such an incredible business. And we're obviously going to get into all the failures that prompted so much learning. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Rebecca. It's a pleasure.
You know, when I get these inbound emails, I'm always searching for these nuggets of struggle. And it's not, the person's not opening with, here's my product. And what struck me immediately was you were born into foster care.
Yes.
And you've gone on to create $1 billion company. It's a 10 Haircare. So I want to go all the way back to when you were a little girl. And how did you overcome the odds? Because you hear these stories of kids and what they had to deal with. And I'd love to start there.
So I was 2 years old when I was adopted. And I was adopted with a biological brother, and my parents had 2 of their own sons. So really, the family dynamic and the family picture was really obvious. We're Puerto Rican, and they're blonde hair, blue-eyed Americans. So really back then it was considered an interracial adoption. My brother was like 4, I was 2. And so I think, a lot of people say to me, like, how, as you just said, how did you overcome that? Because it was obvious, it wasn't like they had to sit down and announce to us that we were adopted. And we grew up in Midwest America. I mean, there wasn't a Puerto Rican in sight, and it was obvious. And I think that really overcoming it was becoming a bit of a chameleon is what I learned to do. And I always really had a passion and a drive for probably some unique things, and hair being one of them.
Did it start early? Like, were you playing with hair when you?
Yeah, I can remember being 6 years old or maybe even 5 or 6 and like changing my hairstyle myself because I wanted something different. My mom had me in like the pixie and the bangs, and I was like, oh, I hate this. And I parted my hair, and it was life-changing for me. And it helped me to understand the power of beauty and how you can it really change someone's spirit by changing their hair, their makeup. And so by 8 years old, I was proclaiming I wanted to be a hairdresser. But I was also really into like fashion and interior designing. I was just a creative soul. I used to cut out collages and make big, mood boards and from the Cosmo magazines and all that, when they were paper. So I remember decorating my room. I did an apple green wall. My parents are like, do whatever you want. And of course, I went out there. I went all the way out there and really did kind of creative accenty things. So that transcribed into really who I was as I grew up. And I think it empowered me. I really do. And so I really also, I think, I was scared as a kid though. My mom said I didn't get out of her lap for 2 years when she got me.
Um,
So I was scared and I
yeah.
was timid. I'm so not timid anymore, but
Do you have memories of like pre getting adopted and post, and did something shift in you, or is there just an essence of like, oh, now I'm safe, I have a family?
I do remember some certain things. I
Yeah.
remember being very, very scared. That's what I remember. My brother, who was a year and a half older than me, he has a few more memories. He actually
Yeah.
remembered like where we lived. He remembers hearing boats. We lived literally in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, right along the water of Staten Island there. The big freighters used to go up and down, so he would hear the boats and like, so he had more memories. I was a little bit young, but I do remember feeling, obviously, because I was really a baby when we were taken from my mom. We literally were ripped out of the house, and she never saw us again. I reunited with my birth family when I was 26. I'm 11 of 12 children. So
Wow.
I've reconnected with all of them for the last like 30 years. So
Wow.
it's going to be in the book.
I mean, this isn't just a book, it's a
It's a
movie.
it's a movie. It
Yeah.
is. It is. So we're working on that in 2026. It's coming out. So
Oh my God.
it's an exciting life though. It's my life. I mean, what can I say, you know?
Yeah, but I also think like you're just a shining example of like having the odds stacked against you and look what you've turned it into. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
because I think it is so important to have the mindset of your glass being half full.
Yeah.
That life is perception, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
either you can kind of do the poor me and, and trust me, there are moments I had the poor me's when I was younger, wondering really I didn't even find out I was Puerto Rican until I was 26 years old. So wondering, who am I? What's my past really about? And then older connecting with it and finding out that my name isn't really, it was Carolyn Plummer at the time. My name isn't really Carolyn Plummer. It's, Erizo Ernesto Reyes. That's my real name. So
Wow.
how do you manage that? How do you manage from being born into one life, plucked out of it, and being made a whole nother human being with a new birth certificate and everything? And so, I had to weed through that in my teens and 20s. And a lot of soul searching, a lot of reading. I love to learn. So yeah, I mean, it's an important process to evolution, and we're always evolving as humans, right? I'm still learning.
Yep.
Almost
Yep.
60 now, I'm still learning.
Man, you don't look 60. I want to take whatever you're taking.
I think Hispanics age backwards.
They
Look at
do,
J
as
Lo.
well as black and brown people. I'm very, I'm
Amen.
sometimes I'm like, well, I have olive skin, so maybe it'll be a little less than
Yes,
the
yes.
true
You're Jewish, right? So I mean, Jewish is right there. I'm Jewish too. I'm a Puerto Rican Jewish person. But
Oh
I mean,
wow.
yeah, but I mean, it's true. Like when you're ethnic, you just kind of different.
God bless the melanin. That's all I can say.
Amen. I'll take it. Brown spots and all.
I know. As a side note, I was getting a facial and the gentleman said, I can remove all your brown spots. I said, I don't want you to. I'm good with them. Like,
That's right.
I don't want the Korean glass skin. I'm good. I'm
That's
good.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
me
It's
too.
beautiful,
Me
but not for
too.
me.
Yeah.
So at 18, you've done some soul searching. What made you say, okay, this is what I want to do? I mean, what was sort of the full force into it?
Yeah, I started beauty school at 16 in a vocational beauty school, and then I kind of teetered. I'm like, maybe I'll be a nurse, and I went into nursing classes and worked in a nursing home for 2 years. But then after that, I was like, you know what? Hair's my thing. So at 18, straight into beauty school, tried to find the best beauty school I could find, then graduated and find the best. I always strive to obviously connect with the best. So I found a chain salon, but it was 7 salons that were really high end. I had a cutting department, a color department, trained there. And then I went to Vidal Sassoon in Toronto because I grew up in Michigan. So went across the border, tried to get additional education. So worked 6 days a week in like, an apprentice program, but always was trying to soak up and learn through the process. And then eventually got my own chair, was a starving hairdresser.
Let's talk about starving. Let's get real about what that actually looks like.
Hundreds of dollars a month. My rent, I remember, was $400 a month, and I could barely pay it sometimes.
Wow.
And sometimes like scrimping on the gas, cutting hair at night, like anywhere I could make an extra 20 or 40 bucks to put in my pocket, I was doing it. But I had a really supportive family. My parents were really instrumental in supporting me, which was amazing. And my parents were educated people. My mom graduated from Columbia, my father Manhattan College. So to have a daughter that went to beauty school. Years later, my mom was like, yeah, my friends were like, aren't you disappointed she's going to beauty school? And my mom told them, no, I'm proud of her. I hope she's the best hairdresser she can be. And so they were super, super supportive. But they also taught me, like, they wanted me to understand financial literacy. They wanted me to understand, like, my dad was I had three older brothers and me. So my dad, even being the youngest and the only girl, was always like, you're my little businesswoman. He spoke it into existence. He would take me to seminars and like teach me how to use Quicken. When I was in a hairdresser, 18 years old, I was an independent contractor. I did 1099, pay my own taxes, get my own insurance, yada yada, my own 401, my Roth IRA. But he sat me down and taught me how to do all that at a very young age. Pay yourself first, he used to tell me. And that didn't mean go buy the shoes. It
Right.
meant put your money away, let it build, let it, compound, and make sure you save for those rainy days or those things you want to work towards, building things.
Yeah. So on the days when you're hustling at night, when you're scrimping on gas, you're not able to pay your rent. I know what that's like very well.
Yep.
What was your North Star? What made you say this is going to be worth it?
I think my passion for the industry. I
Yeah.
loved what I did. And I wanted to build it, and I knew it doesn't happen overnight. I think that's part of what our society is lacking in today's world because we have instant fame, we have instant media, we have instant connection with millions of people, and everyone thinks everything should happen overnight.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're building a career, it doesn't. So Gen Z doesn't quite get that. Like you aren't instantly going to make tons of money and have top positions because you think you deserve it. I think it's a process and I was willing to be committed to that process, whatever it was, be sweeping the floors, doing the towels, assisting, like being at service. I am in a service industry. And
Yeah.
to this day, I service people and I'm committed to that.
So you work from 18 to 30,
Yep.
and then you start It's a 10 Hair Care in 2006. So talk me through, what happened from 18 to 30, and then how did you get the idea to start It's a 10? And, I'd love for you to talk about, like, was it a runaway hit? What made it special? Um, yeah.
Yeah. So stood behind the chair and was a salon owner, eventually owned my own salon.
Okay.
And so I ended up meeting a gentleman who was in sales within the beauty industry. And we got married, moved to LA, lived in Calabasas, and he got fired from his job. And so he's like, let's make our own line. So we did. And it completely failed. We lost everything and got divorced. I mean,
This is
it was
Link, right?
this was Link. Yeah. Wow, you've done your homework. Yeah, this is Link. So we started Link in 2001. And I, at that time, was probably like 30. I was 30, maybe 5 or 6.
Okay.
And so we had, like I said, we did that for a couple of years and it completely failed. So we got divorced and split our last $80,000. We each had $40,000, and that's all we had. And we
Wow.
split it and we bought closeout bottles. We could only make one product, which was a Miracle Leave-In product. And we started small batches with one product. And we took our last bit of money and we started It's a 10 Hair Care, divorced. But we started with the one bottle, and now we sell over 11 million bottles a year of that product just in America. We're in 125 countries. We have over 80 SKUs. And in 2017, I bought him out. So I am the sole owner of It's a 10 Hair Care, which is obviously a worldwide brand, only Latina owned brand in the world of this size. And
Wow.
I'm committed to remaining the 100% owner of this company. So many people do ventures, so many people sell off pieces. So many people take in capital. This has been a completely self-funded brand from day one, and it still remains that way. And I also have about 15 other companies. So it's a 10 hair care, it's a 10 enterprises. It is a mothership to Rewinded Hair Care, Be a 10 makeup, hair extensions, hair tools. I have Fast Arise, Be a 10 makeup. I think I mentioned that. So I have so many. Cloud. I just launched Cloud, a retail brand, Walmart, CVS. So I'm committed to just bringing the best beauty products for men and women to the industry, raising the bar. That's what I love to do. Just make everything just a little bit better, simple, easy to use, multifunctional products. And so, yeah, I feel like I'm just beginning, and I'm literally in this industry 42 years.
Wow.
So it's a great industry. I love it.
It's incredible. It's incredible to hear this and that you're the sole owner and sole funded. And I interview and meet a lot of women who think their answer is to raise money. And I'm always saying, don't do it. It's the
Don't do it. Are you the same? Are you have that mindset as well?
I have it now. We self-funded and bootstrapped the first 7 years, and then we took in private equity. And there was just a different time then. VC wasn't even a thing. It was private equity was heavily investing in the fashion industry. So we took, 26% and then 10%. And then we sold the full thing 2 years ago. So I'm a happily paid employee, but
I love it.
I love it. And then sometimes, like the reason I was running late to this call is because I got some news that I have no control over, and you're just like, oh,
There's something to be said for how I described it when I became the sole owner. By the way, there's a whole section of the book to that journey, because
yeah,
that's epic, how I
yeah.
actually became sole owner. Having to buy my partner out was a massive, massive undertaking. Not to mention some legal, issues along the way. And so, yeah, I mean, I had a private person who believed in me, God bless him, um, and actually lent me some money, and I
Wow.
had him pay back within a few years. So I
Wow.
have zero debt. And so, but if, it takes, people believing in, obviously, and believing in what you're trying to achieve and what you're all about. And I was honored that someone believed in me in that way. And I was very, very blessed, because we couldn't get public funding. I
Right.
tried to get bank loans. I tried to buy my partner out in very conventional ways. And I had to go a very unconventional way, which was to find a private investor who was willing to just lend me money without, I wouldn't do it. They couldn't have any of my company. So most people are like, oh,
You
hell
had
no.
no
If
guarantee.
you're not going to give me, no. Well, listen, my whole life was a guarantee. I mean, at that point, I was eating mac and cheese and just making sure I paid him. I mean, he had liens on everything,
Right, right, right,
but, but I was 100% owner. I never
right,
gave that up. And
right.
usually most people are like, oh no, we're not, you got to give us a piece. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do it. I stuck to my guns. And so it worked out beautifully for me. Thank God, because when I became sole owner, as I was starting to say, I knew, and this is kind of how I envisioned it, I needed to really be the driver of my bus and put all my distribution, put all of my connections, put all of what I believed in, how I was going to expand distribution, cross distribution, control my business for the first time ever. I knew I needed to do that. And I had to cut off 20 million in distribution just to achieve that right out of the gate. So not only did I put massive debt on the company, I also cut 20 million off in distribution back in 2017. But I sent a strong message to the industry that there's a new sheriff in town, that I'm going to control this brand and not let it be bastardized.
Yeah.
And that it was an important thing for me to really honor what was built and to maintain it. And it's a balancing act, but
Oh,
I was
for sure.
committed to that.
So what do you think the signal difference in Link being a failure, almost losing everything, getting divorced, to then one formula, new name? What was that difference? Because to me, from the outside, not having tried either product or seen the bottles, that's necessarily of Link, like, what was it?
Well, you always learn a lot of lessons, right? When you fail. So I think some of the lessons that we really learned was that you can't do it all yourself. You can't do everything a la carte. I always compare it to, like, people say, how do you do what you do? I said, it's like building a house. You have a bunch of contractors that bring your vision to life. But you also have to learn how to work with contractors that maybe have multiple services that keep the cohesivity of production. You're a manufacturer. And so that is fine tuning, right? It's the same within your industry. And so sometimes when you can go into a Home Depot and get the plumbing supplies and the electrical supplies and the wood and the all under one roof. And if you have an issue, you go back to one place. They guarantee it, they warranty it. You just, they're really great with returns or helping you getting things into production. They'll air freight it in for you. Those things are really, really important to getting one bottle on the shelf cohesively. And so, when you have all of these, you have chemists, you have ingredients, you have labels, you have sprayers, when you have that all a la carte, you're open to a lot more error. And we had sprayers that didn't work, labels that bubbled, product that shot out, some of the formulas that weren't cohesive. The fragrant wasn't good with the other. I mean, we can go on and on. So we learned, I think, really how to get better at producing and managing that production. So I would run the entire inside, design things, create products. The bottles you see today, really, I chose all that. That's my Latina, right? Back then, 20 years ago, I was bright colors. I have a unique vibe to what I've created. And I continue to evolve with that.
Yep.
That's what we learn, that you can't do it all yourself. You have to be smart in who you partner with to actually manufacture it.
Become fearless and focused in pursuit of your dreams. In my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success, now available in paperback, I share personal stories and practical advice I've learned along the way in pursuit of my own, in fashion world and in my personal life. I talk about how persistence and courage have been the keys to my success. I share my journey of building a company and the challenges I've faced along the way. By refusing to give up and constantly stepping out of my comfort zone, I was able to break through the unspoken rules that have held women back for far too long. My hope through writing this book is to encourage you to face your own fears and take risks when going for your own goals. Fearlessness is a choice, and we all have the power to make it. The book is now available in paperback, including updated content and a new bonus chapter. And so when did you start to see, like, okay, this time it's working? And what did that look like from a financial perspective, from a sales perspective, from a, maybe stores perspective?
I think we learned to not make things too complicated. So simple, easy to use, multifunctional products. We were the first person to put 10 things on the back, literally screaming out, like, simple. The name on the front, simple, not pump me up, baby. Like, what does that mean? What does that do? Right? It's cute. It's hot pink. It looks phallic, whatever it may be. But, you need to really, the consumer and the hairdresser both were extremely confused, oversaturated market, and they didn't understand. So yeah, what that looked like was one simple bottle that did 10 things. And I wanted to call it, it's a 10, because when I work with chemists, I'm like, it's a 3, go back. It's a 6, add slit, create this, let's change this. Like I do that to this day.
Right.
So that concept, I think, really was how we learned to bring something to the industry that not only the consumer could understand, but even the hairdresser could understand. And you picked it up and it worked. We have the most trademarked word miracle in the industry. Every single one of our products is miracle this, miracle that, because people want to feel a miracle. They want to pick up the bottle, use it, and go, wow, I can't live without this.
I'll never forget, I was doing a rebranding of our brand, and somehow we got talking about hair care, and someone suggested, because after each child, I get frizzier and frizzier hair. I used to have very curly hair, and someone suggested I use a product that's mostly for Black women. And for the first time, I didn't have the crazy frizz, and I was like, oh my God, it's a miracle. And don't look at today's hair. Today's hair is like slight work drama hair. But I really resonate with that, because when you find the right thing, you're just like, oh,
when you find it,
I've been using blonde haired product, people with blonde hair, blonde straight hair for my whole life, and wondering why I'm not getting the blonde hair results.
Yeah, right. So it is, you find those products. And so That's what the Miracle Leave-In product is, really the holy grail. Like, I call
Yeah.
them a golden formula within the industry. Sebastian hairspray, like there's just those few products the world knows. It's 20, 30 years later, they still go to it. I've been knocked off a million times. No one can take the market share because we're committed to, obviously, that Miracle Leave-In product is the foundation of all of our 10 collections. And so we build around hair problems and hair collections. And so, yeah, I mean, that's really, that's how we expanded.
So in today's, I feel like direct to consumer space, which I have a lot of friends who have these very, I don't know, you have the Glossier, you have Say, you have all these Monday hair care, whatever it is. Like, it all has a look, right? And it has a method of going to market. And we're going to go to Sephora and Ulta and give them all our money. And then we're going to do billboards and trucks and whatever, and some of it works and some of it doesn't. They're all, a lot of them have raised so much money. How would you say you've stood the test of time 42 years in? And what lessons would you give others who only see that as the way to go when it's not?
It's a great question, because obviously how you live through the test of time is to be able to be adaptable. And we have done that. I love technology, so I'm eager to always, partake in it and keep up with those trends, because there have been brands, solely built just from social media. I mean, it exploded, right? Gone viral. Like, suddenly the whole world knows about it and they haven't left their living room. And so you have that, but you also have the brick and mortar, and you have those connections. But I started in professional hair care only. I started in the Cosmoprof, and the Salon Centric wasn't even around then. These independent small distributors. So how do you transfer that, like you said, in today's world? Can't beat them, join them. We're doing the same thing. We're TikToking. And not only that, we're engaging. We are transitioning. We've actually lowered the demographic of our consumer by 8 years over the last like 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
When I took the company over, we didn't even have a website. Well, we did. It said, "Hi, we're at Satan." No direct to consumer e-commerce. So over the last 7 years, we've built all of that out, as well as completely engaged directly with the consumer and lowered our demographic. Because you have to, like, where you're not your mother's hair care, right? You have to figure out, how do you transform through that? We're in Ulta. We were one of the first brands to ever we gave 2 million bottles out nationwide at that time, because Ulta wasn't international yet. They're now going international, to direct to consumer. So still, I believe in sampling. I built this company on sampling. We didn't have big budgets, marketing budgets when we started. We were literally paycheck to paycheck, so to speak, with building the brand. And so we did massive free sampling. And that's how all of a sudden Christina Applegate spoke publicly about our brand. She had gotten a free sample. She loved it. She spoke People Magazine, InStyle Magazine, front cover, her 10 favorite things. We were one of them.
Wow.
And so I also believe in that human connection is never going to go away. So you still have to figure out, how do you directly connect with the consumer in a very human way. They like to know who's behind a brand. They love your story, right? And so, and I think that's important too. Corporate America comes in, buys everyone up, and you lose that connection, that humanness. So I think, as much as we are technologically propelled, we're going to see it kind of all ends up coming back to a human touch, because we're starting to lose that in society. So even if you're, on a big billboard, yes, you're pumping money into it. It doesn't mean you're always going to win. Look, Kim Kardashian's hair care line, they couldn't give it away. They literally destroyed truckloads full.
What was that one called?
Kim K. Kim K's, I don't remember the name of it. It didn't last long. I mean, and so she can fail, right? I mean,
but sometimes you're like, oh, you too can fail. Like, not that you're happy that anyone fails, but you're like,
of course, but it keeps the reality of it, right? You can't just throw your name on something anymore. People want to know who's behind it. People want to know your story, that your message. How are you, conscious? How are you giving back? I always say there's no business without purpose.
Yeah.
And so we're huge on that. We created a national holiday, 10-10 day. And every year I gave, scholarships, I give grants, I connect with people. We give out millions of free samples. Put a blimp over Coachella, and you could scan the QR code and get your free sample. I mean, just really fun, unique ways to really engage in a real kind of human way. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, how we've been able to continue on. We did a Mother's Day campaign where we had mothers introduce their daughters to the It's a 10. And because, yeah, I saw my mom used to use this, but then we had a guy come on who had curly hair. And he was like, I always saw this in my mother's, bathroom, but I just picked it up one day and oh, the sky's opened up. I've been enlightened by mother's hair care. So that's just really natural human connection.
And how do you do it all? What does your tribe look like? Do you sleep?
I do. I have to have my sleep, but it is sporadic.
Okay.
I have 5 kids. We're a blended family.
Wow.
I have a 4-year-old. So I had my
What?
last child at, 54 years old. So
Hold
we
on.
have 24 to
Birth-
4.
You birthed a baby at
I
54?
did. I did. Yeah.
That's incredible.
So yeah, so we have an amazing big blended family. I've now remarried after, I divorced. I was single for about 10, 12 years and 10 years ago I remarried. So yeah, I mean, I just work a lot, but
Yeah.
I'm committed to my family. So sometimes I work out hours. I'll
Yeah.
be up. I usually wake around 2, 3 every morning and get on some things, especially with, international business. Now because we are worldwide. So I'll get on some connections and I get a few hundred emails a day. By the end of the 24-hour period, my box is always empty. I'm on it like white on rice. So
Wow. And what keeps you inspired? You mentioned earlier in the interview that you're staying in the game, you're not selling, you're going to own this company. Like what keeps you excited and propelling, and what's your succession plan? Are you training this 4-year-old to take over one
yeah,
day?
right. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know if any of my kids will go into this business. There might be some that may, and I know some that definitely won't. I have a really smart son who's at American studying history. He has the best hair in the world. He has these Jewish big curls, but he's never going to be in the hair care industry. So, yeah, I mean, my succession, I think, is probably I need to keep creating. I
Yeah.
love to create. I don't see myself slowing down anytime soon. I'm actually, rather than having maybe like a L'Oreal come by me, I want to be the L'Oreal. Like I said, I have many, many companies. I'm expanding into more brands, more categories, head to toe beauty, men, women, everything. The check would have to be so big, and then I probably would be like, okay, I also do real estate. So I just move my energy. I have a lot of energy. So I just want to keep going. It's what makes me happy. People say, like, what is your leisure? This is my leisure.
Yeah.
I'm happy doing this. I love to work. I love to create and I love to learn.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why stop?
But
For what? Money? I
yeah.
don't need more money. It's like I I don't know. Who
Yeah.
knows? I pray my health stays great and I can continue on for another, 30, 40 years.
That's great. Now, I recently people have been like, so what's next? So what's next? Because we sold and they're like, well, you have a contract. It's ending, right? I said, what else am I going to go do? I'm happy. I'm having
Yeah.
fun.
Yes.
And there's still so much more to do here. Like, I don't have to have now I'm going to go start I don't know, another handbag line. Like, no, like why? So
Yeah.
I totally feel everything you're saying and it really resonates.
Yeah. And you know what? The iron doesn't always strike twice. I mean, lightning doesn't strike twice. Sometimes, you know what? You've created your gem, and building on that gem is a great thing. I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't always have to be like cut off, start over, most of the time it doesn't work for people.
Right.
I've watched it many, many times and I've watched people sell and then they sell their companies and someone else buries them.
Hmm.
Sometimes they even buy them back a few years later. And it's like, it's heartbreaking. I wouldn't want that to happen.
Yeah. And so again, with you having the, it's a 10, be a 10, extensions, everything. Is there a secret sauce you're applying to that to make each one of them do so well?
Absolutely. Raising the bar is my secret sauce. I mean, I am committed to always bringing something better to my industry.
Yep.
And that's what I do. And I mean, I'm a detail person. So every little ingredient, every fragrance, every like thing that I can think about, how I can raise that bar, like with the men's hair color, rewind to 10, direct box color, retail, direct competition with one other company who's been out there umpteen gazillion years. Um, I made it Italian color, high quality, but in a box. So what? It's in a box. We have
Yeah.
literally changed the industry with this product.
Right. And then when it comes to the whole, I don't know how much you can or want to speak to this, but like everything being clean and then the misnomers around that. I had a clean lip gloss that I had the worst allergic reaction of my life to. So I was like, I guess it doesn't matter if it's clean. There still can be things that can hurt you. So how do you approach that when, at least in my industry, the talk around sustainability and I'll sit there and say, I'm not completely sustainable. We can't be.
Right.
So how have you approached that with this mindset of clean, sustainability, green? Because there's again, and then there's also people that are greenwashing, right?
Yep.
Have you sort of dealt with
Absolutely.
that?
So I have always, from day one, been very much into natural ingredients, into quality. But you also realize as a hairdresser, a lot of times those products don't work.
Yes.
So there's a hybrid process, and that's really what I work on creating. But as it's become more and more conscious, and technology has gotten better. So
Mm-hmm.
we just created a clear line, clear, that's in
Yep.
clear bottles, clear products. That is clean, but it's Ulta and Sephora clean. That's our guideline. Okay. And so we're committed to obviously bringing to the industry what people want. I understand why and what people want. But
Yep.
can I tell you, I just left Europe. They've been years ahead of us in this world.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah, they
know
have.
they're going back? They're like not, no one can stand the products. They don't work. So there's new technology, like we're not as silicone based, we're not as petroleum based. That's good. It's really good. We're away from all that.
Yeah.
But there's new technology, a cleaner version that you can still get that ultra shine. You can still get that detangling. So it's this hybrid world that we're eventually going to move into because people are going to realize there's nothing that's absolute.
Right.
That it's just the reality of the world.
Yeah.
So we challenge our ingredient makers and our chemists to bring new technology and better all the time. That we are highly committed to.
Yeah.
PCR free as far as our packaging, things like that. Yes. But you also need things to work.
Yes.
So that's really where my mindset is at.
Yep.
And I find it ironic that all of Europe is like, yeah, we can't take it anymore. Like sometimes going so far, like the paper straws. I mean, it's like ever realize, okay, I can't drink out of these paper
The
straws.
worst experience ever.
We need better. We need
Yeah.
better. And just committing to that constantly is what it's all about. It's why we're
Yeah.
all living longer. I mean, we just have to keep getting better.
Yeah. I love that. So what would you tell those that want to start their own businesses today, having your perspective on 42 years in the hair care industry? Let's get specific. Beauty, hair care industry. What would you tell them?
Like any industry, bring something to the industry it doesn't have. And you too can live the American dream and the world's dream. Anytime you can bring uniqueness to your industry, and especially within the beauty industry, and there's still a lot out there we need.
Yeah.
So put your mind to what we lack
Mm-hmm.
and then bring it to market and start small.
Yeah.
Start small, be willing to work hard, be willing to learn and enjoy the ride because the process is really how you learn.
Yeah.
So, and don't think it's going to happen overnight. And don't always you have the mindset. I love that. I love people who actually realize don't always have to give away a piece of your company. I usually scream at Shark Tank. I usually am like, don't do it. When they're like giving them pennies on the dollar for $100,000, like, no, go to the bank instead or find another way. I just, I just believe in really kind of growing slow and steady, because I find it to be the fastest way to the top. Because once you actually are willing to do that, you are much more in control of your end product and your company's direction. And I think that's key to the success in a brand to literally last lifetimes. 20, 30, 40 years.
It's incredible. You're incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for everything you do for the industry, for women, all the amazing grants you give out. It's really amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I just wanted to thank you guys for listening to today's episode. I also want to ask you to rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it actually helps with search and algorithms. So if you love this podcast, it is an easy way to get it more visible and out there. I also want you to follow me on Instagram at Rebecca Minkoff, at RM Superwomen, and be sure to check out my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. Thank you again, and you will hear from me next week.